Hey everyone, this video serves two purposes today. First and most importantly, we're going to be looking at how to make a guitar template from scratch. And then it is also going to serve as the first video of my next build because this is what it is going to be based on. So we're going to jump into this right away. I've started by making a center line there. And now we are marking out where the neck is going to go. A center point ruler is absolutely essential right here to make sure that you're drawing your lines exactly the same on both sides. So I'm starting with the nut, and then we're building it based off of that. The scale length is going to be 26.5, which is actually what I did for the last guitar. This one is also going to be 7 strings. But getting your nut width correct and then your scale length correct is really the most important thing to start. I have the fret marker ruler there as a reference point so that I can figure out about how long I want the neck to be. I'm planning for this to be 24 frets. Right there we are marking out the width of the neck, which is going to be about 66 millimeters. And if you haven't figured it out already, the vast majority of this video is me drawing lines. Alright, now that the neck's in place, we're going to start working on the body. I want to do an Ibanez Iceman style here. So I'm starting where the neck would go into the body. I'm kind of using that as my reference point. If you think you're ever going to be building multiple guitars with the same body style, you should make a template. Even if you only use it twice, you're going to save yourself a ton of time from having to go back to the drawing board, the literal drawing board, drawing on the board every time that you want to use this body style. So I may use this again. I'm probably going to use it again, but I don't really know. Either way, it also allows you to make mistakes. It's much better to make a mistake on the template, especially with the type of material that I'm using here. So I'm just using medium density fiberboard, and that cost me about $8 for the entire thing. And that is a lot cheaper to mess up on than a $70, $80, $90 body blank. I sped up a lot of these parts because it's fairly boring watching me just draw, just like when I sand. So hopefully this makes it a little bit more bearable. You'll also notice I erase a lot. I make tons of mistakes as I go, but that's okay. I'm just getting the general shape. When I get something that I like, I can keep that. And sometimes you get something and you think that's it, but then you draw the rest of it and you're like, well, that doesn't exactly fit the way I wanted to. As you can see right there, I have widened the body quite a bit. Now we're going to work on the headstock. I was originally going with a traditional Ibanez style headstock here. So I was trying to mimic that in some ways. The trouble is that it's a 7-string, so the spacing's a little bit different. And then I needed to widen it a little bit more to make it look good with the neck. And then there I'm measuring out where the tuning pegs will go. And the great thing about this is I put all this work into it, drew it out, waited a couple days, thought about it, and then ended up completely redesigning the headstock. So that will also happen. Another reason why I do it on the template, you can kind of figure that out, see if you like it, and if you don't, you can redo it. Now I'm working on the bridge placement. This is probably the most important thing as far as hardware goes of where you're putting it into the guitar body. First off, you have to have the scale length correct, and then next you have to make sure that it's properly placed in the center. So what I'm doing there is I'm drawing where it's going to, the string is going to go over the nut and where it's going to connect with the bridge. So I've got both sides on there, and I want to make sure that these are exact, because if you have your bridge too far one way or the other, your string's going to slip off, or it's going to be too far up. It's not going to be comfortable. It's going to cause all kinds of playability issues. So it is extremely important to get this centered. And I don't know if I'm going to use this bridge or not. I have it laying around. It's a 7-string bridge. I may use something else, but I'm putting it in the template. I don't have to use this in the actual guitar body. I can still use the rest of the template, the neck pocket, everything like that. And then if I want to switch the bridge up, that's fine. I can just mark out the new one if I'm using something else. So one of these lines is the scale length there. I made sure the top of the saddles were right at the 26.5 mark. Now I'm working on the pickup placement, and I don't know exactly what pickups I'm using for this guitar. I am drawing the placement for Fishman's for a 7-string guitar. I would like to use those. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get them. I don't know if I'm going to want to spend the money. So I'm preparing for what I want to do, but just like the bridge, if I want to switch that up on the guitar body, I can. It's going to be easy to do them with it being on the template, but if I want to switch them up to something else, I can just use a different pickup cavity template and we're fine. So that's another reason why it's good to make guitar body templates. Even if you're not using everything on the guitar body, you can still use the template. The placement of the important things is there, and then you can just modify whatever other parts you're using. In my video about your necessary tools, I listed the bandsaw as the best cutting tool and an essential. If you're doing something like this, a jigsaw is necessary unless you have an extremely huge bandsaw, which I don't. Hopefully the music made that a little less tedious and a little more bearable. All of those things such as sanding, cutting, very tedious, very boring, but they need to be done. Here we are tracing the body onto another piece of wood, and we're going to be making a second body template. This one is so that we can do the neck pocket. I'm also making another neck, and this other neck is what I am going to use as the neck template. So I made the entire guitar first. That way all the measurements were correct. I knew exactly where I wanted everything to be, and it all fits together. So now we are actually making the individual templates, and there's a look at what the headstock redesign looks like. I really like the look of that headstock, and I think it fits that body style. Let me know what you think. So I didn't actually redo the headstock on the original guitar template. I'm actually going to be cutting that neck off once I make the one with the neck pocket and the neck, but I want to make sure I have those done first. But all you really need is the headstock template. Uh, I'm going to put holes in it eventually and everything, but you can just throw this down exactly where you want it after you've got your neck on the piece of wood. And now we are cutting out the second body, and you can see right there that's where the neck pocket is going to go. And we're not going to cut out the full body shape. We are going to leave the horns intact. The reason we're going to leave all of that and not cut it is because that is what's going to give us our level area for the router when we're actually taking the material out on the actual guitar body. Here I'm just using a router bit with a bearing and matching the second template with the first one. We want to make sure they're both exact as possible to each other. Now we're doing some final shaping to the headstock. And it's ready to go. Now back to some more tedious sanding. I'm just taking as much material off as I can on the neck. I'm starting to shape the curves on the edges. And that's the one that I'm going to be using as my template. I actually was using the wrong sanding drum at first, so it was taking me forever, and I was wondering why everything was going so slow, and then I realized I had the wrong one on there. And then as soon as I switched it, everything got done real fast. So here I'm using a coping saw. I have not used it that much, and I needed a good way to get the material out. I did not want to use a router here. There's too much variance when you're routing without a template, at least to me. Some people might be able to do it, and if you can follow a line and not go over that line, by all means use a router. But I find they are too imprecise when you're doing it freehand, so I wanted to cut it out, and I'm just going to sand down. And I basically used a file and then a little rotary sander and some sandpaper to get the slot exactly where I wanted. This took quite a while, and one of the keys is to go slow. I'll do a little bit. I'll try to fit the neck. We'll see where we're at, and then we keep going. You do not want to just keep going and go too far. I've done that before, and it ruins everything. You have to start over. And there, the neck is actually just barely sticking in there. We don't want the neck going in completely. We want a little bit of room to play with. We want to make sure it's actually tight. We can always sand down the neck with the final product if it's a little bit too wide. It is better to have too much material than not enough. So if I'm using that template for my neck and I route following that template, I'm going to have just a little bit more material than what I need, so it's going to be a nice tight fit. I'll probably sand it down a little bit more, and that's totally fine, and it should match up well. So that's the design that I made for the cavity, and I basically just followed the edge and then drew some lines for it. I didn't really think about the logistics of it or anything. I just figured it fits the body style pretty well. And there I'm cutting the neck off completely. And then we're going to sand down the edges to get the body exactly where we want. So we need two body templates, one that has a neck pocket and then one that is just the body. That way we get the exact curve that we're looking for where the neck goes. I really like this coping saw, by the way. It was only about $7, and I got some blades to go along with it, which were like $6. I got it from Harbor Freight, and it works really well. I haven't broken a blade yet. I've used it on a variety of materials. If you're looking for a coping saw, I highly recommend checking that one out. You can't really go wrong for that price. Now we're just finishing up some of the final sanding, and the template is ready to go. I'm really excited to get started on the actual guitar soon. I've got some, in my opinion, great plans for this. We'll see how it turns out. It may turn out terrible, and I'll just have to restart, but who knows. Hopefully this video is helpful if you are wanting to make your own template, and this gives you a good starting point on what to do and how to do it from scratch. If you have questions or comments, please leave them below. I'd be happy to get back to you.